Welcome to Love and Life. I'm Dr. Karin Anderson-Abril here with my co-host,
Pastor Elliott Anderson.
And Love and Life is your place to hear conversations grounded in psych research, psychotherapy,
and biblical truth
to help us thrive in love and life.
So, Karin, we talked about through text exchange about what's the rhythms, what's the movements of clients and conversations in 2026. And coming off our last episode, I had several of my clients slash friends slash mentees, some of which you know, reach out and give me their 3 kind of goals based on those categories we talked about last episode, which is awesome. It's fun when people listen to the show and then respond back with us in live time. It feels, oh, this is really adding value and meaning.
Yeah.
And so they gave some feedback and even gave some goals, but all 3 of the clients' friends who did that didn't concretize them enough, didn't make them strategic enough and specific enough. And so what I did with all of them and myself as I was launching through my own, which are going very well, by the way, outside of getting this stupid cold thing that's going around, is make them very specific. Yeah, and trying to make them strategically specific. And so I just thought I'd start today's episode in that kind of framework, that all of my study and research on goals and on habits is making it as specific as possible. So rather than saying, I'm going to get more sleep this year, you have to be very specific. I'm going to go to bed by 11. I'm going to get up by 7. I'm going to cut my naps down or take them out, right? You have to be really specific with yourself. And in essence, this sounds bizarre, but the more neurology I'm researching and reading, the more truth it has. And it makes sense that you're basically telling your brain what to do, how to think, how to believe, and how to activate.
I was just thinking about like the sleep thing as someone who is a night owl and wants to be a more normal human as opposed to nocturnal. I was just, that one like really like pinged me, and I thought you might want to also look into some of the research of how do we, so getting rid of your phones about an hour before, no blue light, an hour before bed, trying to find out some of the other things, eating earlier in the evening, your dinner, because your body's busy digesting and that's keeping you up. So all those kinds of things. So what you're saying, get real concrete about not just sleep longer and healthier sleep, but I want to increase from 6 hours a night, or sometimes fewer than that if you're a nocturnal person like me, to 8 hours. And then you're going to probably need to do a little research as to what strategies and behaviors you need to change to get into habits that will facilitate your concrete goal.
Yeah, and they're very organically coordinated and collaborative in your own mind, body, heart, and spirit. So you mentioned like 3 other areas right away regarding the sleep preparation, and they always say the more concrete and the more consistent your patterns are, the better. And you and I are both married to very consistent pattern people, which should help us. Doesn't mean it's not our own decision to make and that we have to own it ourselves. We just don't want to be codependent on our partners just because they have that kind of natural rhythm. But and even the context of one of my other clients who is not an alcoholic, but drinks too much and wants to make that different. And so how do you formulate that? And one of the things he's doing is just no more alcohol after his glass of wine with dinner. So he's just stopping it there.
Right.
And it's not like he drank a ton after that, but it'd just be occasionally good games on, a couple more beers, or good games on, maybe a mixed drink, or a little shot of whiskey. And he's like, I don't feel like I'm completely bound to it. He's reading and seeing all the research about alcohol not being really worth a hill of beans for us ever.
Right.
And he's wanting to incorporate that. Yeah. And that's the point that's what I was making. And then he's like, I recognize when I'm doing this and I'm stopping with a glass of wine with dinner, I'm getting to bed better and I feel like I'm sleeping better.
Right.
So I think we're both saying, take the one area you want to build a new habit, new pattern, new rhythm, new structure with, and look at it holistically, organically, and tie those things in together. And then the more concrete you can be, the more specific you can be with really tied, even responses even. One of mine is and I was talking to this with one of our friends that we both know. I said, I'm not just going to read more again. I'm being very specific about what I'm reading, right? 1 neurology book, 1 faith book per month. Neurology, psychology, counseling doesn't mean just neurology. And then 1 like fun book, like I'm reading the John Wooden Kareem Abdul-Jabbar book that you or Warren gave me. I can't remember who gave me for Christmas, but it's outstanding. And 1 fun book like every other month. So I'm being very specific within that tie frame. And yet what we talked about last episode, you and I are both more spontaneous. And so I'm not going to stress it if all of a sudden I find another Reds history book I don't have and I sneak that one in there. I'm not going to be like frustrated. Or if I read I got the latest David Jeremiah book on the end times, and he's my favorite end times author. And so I read his one about the tribulation period. Now I'm reading his one about the millennium. If he has one about heaven coming and it comes out, I'm just going to read it.
Mhm.
So not saying, oh, doesn't fit the system. I'm not reading that till 2027, right? And you and I pass books back and forth all the time too. And the book Balswick and Balswick's got that book on marriage and family I haven't read yet. I'm like, ooh, if that's gonna be Karen's textbook, I'm gonna grab a copy sometime and I'm gonna read that. Things like that.
You could just add it to your book list and then squeeze it in and then check it off when you read it after the
Absolutely.
fact, and it still counts. For random, what are we? Random, not chaotic. What is
Concrete
it?
random.
I don't think I'm concrete.
I'm
really.
concrete random. You might be abstract random.
Yeah, I was trying to remember that.
Dad was abstract random, but in an amazing way. He drilled so many habitualistic patterns in his administrative work that he was extremely detailed with his research and his notes but he was still abstract random as far as the movements and staying up till 2 a.m. as a 70-year-old professor and getting up at 6 and then taking 2 naps. And he still had those movements.
Well, and whether so for abstract random people, it's going to be harder, but even for people who are more sequential, and is that concrete sequential? That's Angie?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And Warren.
I think we can all be more intentional. Something we're doing here in our house is we are going to, and this is something I read in that book, and I gave it to Doug and Amy, and I don't know if I gave it to Adam and Jackie, but
you gave me one too that was about kids.
Oh, maybe I gave you it too. It's one of the best ones I've ever read. I read it 10 years ago when I was a newer stepmom, just trying to be supportive in that role, knowing that I didn't come in from the ground floor. I came in midway, right? Like things are half baked, but I'm going to try to do my part, which is rough for a step parent anyway, because it's just it's a strange role. But anyway, and it was called The Entitlement Trap, and it talked about parenting that's very difficult in our modern era, because many families really can provide their kids pretty much anything. Like every time you go to the store, you go to Target, they walk by the toy aisle, like they want the $5.99 toy. You can provide it for them. Yep. But you also know that to instill values into your children, you don't want to just give them every little whimsical, whatever. I'm not saying that right. You don't want to give into every whim, every one of their whims, because that's teaching them to not be mindful and thoughtful about the value of money and how someone worked hard for that. And then we don't just buy something because it's a $5.99 piece of plastic crap from China. We want to be more thoughtful. And so they talked about having a value of the month that you, and they said, parents, you go to church, your kids go to Sunday school, you think you don't have to talk about honesty all that much. You just think that you just assume that you're modeling it. They're hearing it from the pulpit and from the Sunday school teacher. No, you have to be intentional about all these values. And so we're going to do a fruit of the spirit every month.
Oh, I love it.
And this month's is self-control.
Oh,
and that goes back to
right
Dr.
after.
Leonard. What's that?
I think it's the hardest one. You went right after the toughest one right off the bat.
Because Dr. Leonard Sachs, who's I believe the nation's premier parenting expert, and I've interviewed him way back before you joined, which was such an honor. He looks at the research, and I shared this in Child Development last fall. And you can ask someone, what do you think in third grade you can assess a child, and you can make 30 years later, you can predict whether he will be happy and successful in whatever that means, but happily functioning in his relationships, with health and with fullness and having a nice career, whatever that means, but happiness and success. And the biggest predictor is not IQ. You might think that, the smart kids, they're going to end up on top later. You might think emotional sensitivity, like someone who's got real good EQ, that would be the child. You can go with any other kind of metric you want or variable you want to consider. But what surprises people a lot is that the biggest predictor of success in adulthood and health and happiness is conscientiousness, which involves self-control. Conscientiousness being one of the big 5 personality traits. So anyone who's familiar with that literature. So you look at a third grader, can he impulse control? Can he sit back, delay gratification? Self-control is also related to empathy. If I can be controlled of myself and then imagine what you're seeing from your vantage point, which again is related to EQ, of course. But when we're talking about this, we're looking at self-control as being the biggest determinant. So Dan and I are like, well, we're with these children for however long we have them. If we can help fortify self-control when kids who've been through chaos, through no fault of their own, so you know that their impulse control is probably not the strongest. So if we can, if there's one value that is aligned with our biblical understanding of of what God sees as health and evidence of us, of his spirit working within us. If we can leave them with one, that's why we started with the biggie. It was research based and biblically based.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. It's awesome and great reminder for all of us, no matter what our background is or what our
and that's
current
my
situation
point.
is.
I don't think you need to have kids in your care to go, wait, this is the value of the month, just so that you can kind of just get focused on one. It's a little bit more manageable than like, I'm going to live out all the fruits of the spirit. Woo, let's go.
Yeah, it very much applicable to what we're talking about. And Dr. Fogg, Fogg, that researcher and professor I talked about last episode about habits, something I didn't say last episode that fits here really, really well with what you're saying, what I'm saying, whether it's alcohol or sleep or self-control or eating, nutrition, be as specific as possible, tie them into existing habits. So how do I bring the value of self-control into the dynamic, into the conversation about how much food we eat, or if we're buying something extra, or about our language or our words? And I would pray for all of us to have much better self-control about our negative self-talk and cut that out of our life completely. And Dr. Fogg says we must celebrate. We should keep some type of accountability measure that we can keep track of, like the books I'm reading, and say, yes, you mentioned it. I check it off, got book on each side done for the month. In light of extra class I'm teaching this semester, that's going to be a challenge, but I'm looking forward to it. It excites me, encourages me. I say it to you. I say it on air. I've said it to Warren, right? I'll say it to many people to help build that kind of incidental pressure, and a good pressure, not a bad pressure, right? And if stuff comes up and I can't get to, I'm not going to like condemn myself. But to make enough of that known that you feel a little bit of a compliance need to stick with it and then celebrate. So after you get done with the week fast like Brother Tim did, or you get done with the self-control month in January for the family, you celebrate it in some way, not by going out of control, but maybe just celebrating the discipline. And that's an important part. And American Western culture, we don't do great on celebration for these things. We do a lot better on condemnation.
Yeah, or we just celebrate, something that's not related
random
to
and
a
not
value.
that important.
I mean, it's just, as I was thinking about what we want to talk about today too, that was something that came to mind. And I thought, so we have a whiteboard that I put self-control, and then I've got all of our names there. And we're going to each day talk about where we challenged ourselves to resonate with self-control, or where we saw someone else do it. And it is related to, like you said, it's these fruits of the spirit. They're going to permeate all of our three goals that you talked about, whether it's nutrition and fitness, and then spiritual well-being, and then relational well-being. They can all be involved. Like
absolutely,
a relational well-being. I got a text from a friend the other day, and she's a friend who everyone knows her because she's the one that actually talks to me. I mean, the friend who thinks and votes differently than I do and still talks to me. Let me just put it that way.
With you,
And the way that it was framed, I had to exhibit self-control. So I'm just giving an example of the relational. Because I thought, I don't know why she's texting me this right now, because it felt like it was going to fuel the fire.
Sure.
And we're trying to find that common ground. And I can't even remember how much I've shared, but I have so much more I could share about this. And I do think we should talk about it at some point, because that's, again, another theme that is going to continue to be a part of Americans' lives through 2026, is trying to find common ground with people who right now we're so polarized. Anyway, all that to say, just as an example, I thought to myself, what would Jesus do? What would Jesus do? What would Jesus do? Just Karin, just right now, just lay back for a second. Just lay back for a second. Don't respond right now. And I just said, I'm busy. I'm cooking dinner. I got to take the and just kind of press pause on it so I could reflect. And then some of the energy that I had, like, I just that's unnecessary.
Sure. Yeah.
That's not fostering love. That's going to foster division. I don't need to do that. Like, so taking that self-control piece, even it doesn't matter that I had very legit points that were also true. Like, you're not listening to my side. I was like, that doesn't matter. What's that going to do?
Especially over text.
I know it's your favorite thing.
Extremely hard to. They're self-control people, please. Your negative self-talk and texting beyond anything of basic instruction, detail, time frames. See you then. See you there. Gosh, we got to quit having emotional, deep conversations over text. It's just dangerous, even if things are going well. And Karin, your disclosure there on that end reminds me of the acronym ACE, A-C-E, that I use with my classes. And I use it in two ways. One is what you just did. You acknowledged, right? You considered, and you even emoted. That's the first part of the ACE, saying, oh, this ticks me off a little bit or frustrates me a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm considering what to do because I'm pausing. I'm not jumping into it right away. I'm going
Right.
to pause. I'm cooking, so I got something else I'm doing, which helps, right? Because
Yeah.
then you don't ruminate quite as much. But
Yeah.
you might be whisking eggs and thinking about it at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, considering it. Yeah. And then you emote even a little bit and recognize, ooh, I acknowledge I'm a little frustrated, or I acknowledge I'm a little sad. For me, the ACE thing helps me when I get sad sometimes out of the blue and I really don't know where it came from. And I'm not sad based very often anyway. And normally I can find it back to just depth of difficult counseling scenarios. And maybe I had rapid fire 3 in a row and I didn't even have time to kind of acknowledge, consider, and emote the first session, let alone the next two.
Right.
And that happens with marriages a lot when they're really, really struggling. And then the second part of the ACE is accept, meaning often accept yourself or accept the scenario. Then change. You change, not requiring the other person to change. Change what I'm going to say, change how I'm going to respond, and then engage.
All right.
Stay
Wait, you got
engaged
two
with
ACEs
relationship.
for us.
2 ACEs for us, yes.
All right. We got to get these for the show notes too, so people can revisit that if
So
they
the
want.
second one is accept the scenario, the situation, yourself, change, and then change you.
Yeah.
If you're having a problem with this relationship or you're having a problem with your workout routine, accept it. Quit saying, oh, I'm really doing great. Well, really not really doing it. Accept I'm not doing great. I want to change. I'm going to change it. I'm going to do something different, right? Repeating the same thing over and over again is insanity. So I'm going to do something different. I'm going to change myself, and then I'm going to engage back with it. Because often we'll accept it and our change is, well, screw it. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just eat whatever the heck I want to. Or I'm going to quit working out. I'm just going to, think mentally about working out. Maybe that'll help, right? Whatever. And so we end up getting defeated rather than change and then re-engage or engage again. And then the other side is acknowledge, consider, and emote. Acknowledge, consider, and emote. I'm prepping for a personality class, and these are the acronyms that come into personality class. And
I like your acronyms. I think
move forward, and
they're handy.
Thank you and Costa McRae and Unify, and getting
That's
the traits,
the big 5,
and it's all good stuff. And I teach tomorrow at Fox Valley Church here in town about brokenness, strategies for caring for the broken, and specific suicide and abuse. So it's heavy in my heart, and I give them these 5 P's of how do you process in the midst of this, right? And so I'm in the acronym alliteration mode, but I thought you would like those ACE acronyms, and that's what I think you did. That's what I heard you do. And again, when you are, and I mean this as a compliment, when you are as passionate and as quick of a processor.
It's Dad's fault. Dad was so intense.
I'm not done blessing you, so be quiet for a second. Okay. When you're as passionate as you are and as emotional and as quick processing and intellect, your need to ace it is probably a little stronger than others.
Yeah.
Right. Some people don't process super fast and can't get that quick retaliation. Or, people say all the time, I wish I could have that comeback line. I could have really zinged them. I go, really? You don't want to.
No.
Right? Because even though it would have been a really good one and it felt good once you got it off, the minute you got it off, you're like, oh, geez,
you'd
that's
regret
poison.
it. No.
Yeah, that's poison. I just up the ante of frustration, discouragement. I see that in marital crisis stuff all the time.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
They just build up the anger and frustration rather than. And Charles Swindoll said it this way: if you want to stop an argument, shut up. That's Pastor Charles Swindoll. I love it. He said, "Shut your mouth." I just said, "Shut up." But sometimes that kind of simplicity.
Forgetting that they're on the same team, which is really, really.
Chris Rock's right. Chris Rock's wisdom.
Was
We're
that
not in competition? Remember, Chris Rock does this marital stuff. The comedian. We're not in competition.
I know Chris Rock. Yeah.
Yeah, we're not in competition. We're teammates. They're on your team. They're wearing your ring. You quit competing with them and trying to fight them for everything. Be collaborative. Be together.
He's got so many other good bits. We can go down a Chris Rock rabbit hole because he has some fun stuff. But anyway, the thing that's helped me a lot, Elliott, and we've talked about it, but it's something that because we talked about it, I kept referring back to it. And it seems so basic and so like Christianity 101, like I should have integrated this in pre-K with Mrs. Covey or Miss Luella. Wait, Miss Flora. I should have had this locked in. I'm just for someone who didn't go to 9th Street Baptist Church, which would be most of our listeners. Those were our Sunday school teachers growing up.
Yeah, great ladies.
Oh my, it's just pillars of faith. Yeah. So what's helping me is that I don't have a choice. And we've talked about this, but I want to just reiterate it for myself even. Just every time I can speak this, like you're speaking out your intentions to everyone who will listen for that accountability. I'm speaking it out to anyone who will listen. And it has been so freeing because it doesn't matter if I've got a great comeback and but this, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I, as a Christian, I am to honor Christ and I am to live the life he has called me to live, which entails love, patient, kind, right? Patient. I'm not going to just key up when someone comes. Here's how I frame it. You came for me. You're coming at me.
You came at me. You're handling me.
Right. No, love is patient. Love is kind. It is not rude. It does not boast. It is not self-seeking. Wait a minute. I'm forgetting. Yeah. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not rude. Is not self-seeking. Is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrong. That's not a choice.
Right.
Karen, understand. Just because you feel some type of way and you got something to say, you're a Christian. I don't have the choice. And it's helping me and it's freeing me. The freedom of discipline, right? If I'm disciplined disciple.
And honoring God's word.
I'm free because now, a lot of the things that have been going on in my head for the last, it's probably a couple of years, with a lot of different relationships, I'm like, all I can do is live out God's word. I live as best as I can by 1 Corinthians 13, live as best as I can, the fruit of the Spirit. And whatever happens, I can't control. And I can't beat myself up. I could have done, should have done. All I can do is do that. And then I have to release it to God. And like we've talked about before, yes, we have goals for healing and relationships, but we can only, it's a two-way street. I can only do my side of things.
Larry Crabb's book, he says, Take the Pressure Off or something's the name of that book. It's one of his, I love Crabb's stuff. It's one of his really good books about
I haven't read that in a long time.
That whole framework. And Karen, one of the points I made in my sermon last week, I did a 2-parter on James's perspective on our tongue, bridling our tongue. And if we're not controlled in our tongue, we're not controlled as a believer. We're not controlled as Christ, right? Another Swindoll quote, we open our mouth and the character of Christ comes out. So what does it look like when we're talking, speaking, and sharing, right? So, and one of the quotes I gave from Paul was, Paul says, be gracious in everything. And it's one of Paul's command languages again. We're like, oh, that's a good idea.
But he was a hothead himself.
He was. And
he was talking to himself, I'm sure.
He was. Of course he was. Just like you and I do every episode. Of course he's talking to himself. He had a quick temper. You could see that. And even in his healed restorative time, he had a temper with the whole John Mark scenario and Barnabas. But I just love that because the Greek grammar there is very specific. It's command. That's our general. That's our general in the faith of spiritual warfare saying, listen, friends, I've been through this. I'm a veteran in the faith. I'm an old white gray beard. Gracious and everything. Every single response, every single activity, every single movement. That is really difficult to do, but it does bring what you were just saying and you're already feeling and representing this freedom, this peace that goes beyond comprehension, as the word says it will.
Right. Past
in the midst of chaos, in the midst of all the scenarios with friends, family, politics, community, church, spouses, right? Whatever the scenario is. You know, if our spouses are trying to handle us too much or trying to dictate us too much, we gotta be gracious.
I will say I'm thankful that we've always been on the same team. He's playing team captain role sometimes.
Which he biblically should be doing.
Or he's playing point guard role and I'm getting told what play is going to happen. I'm like,
that's good for you, even though you were a good point guard too.
No, I wasn't.
Yeah. No, why are you condemning yourself?
I know my strengths. I probably should have been in theater. I probably shouldn't have spent so much time. I mean,
She's
let's
done
be honest.
Musical theater.
I should have.
But as far as our level of high school athletics and our conference, small school, small prep school, you were a good point guard. You don't want to hold that up.
You just like that I got in fights,
right? You don't want to hold that to what I was doing because that was a real gift for me. But still, you were an accomplished point guard. You did a good job, and you scrapped it up, which I always liked.
That part you liked.
Yeah, Mom was like, "Oh, what's going on out there?" I'm like, "Yeah, get him, Kay, get him."
I was scrappy. That's because you and Warren beat me down for all those years.
So I think the context, what we're saying here, and the comprehensive nature is setting these new goals, setting these strategies, believing in the new life, the new song, the new heart, the new spirit. And frankly, we all need that. Paul would even tell us, how about every day, right? His mercies are new every morning. That's not a Paul quote, but it's that whole context of believing in that, right? Sometimes when we're frustrated at night, the best thing to do is simply go to bed because we're ruminating, we're frustrated, we're angry. We're like, I can't settle this. I don't know what I'm going to do. And I'm sure Angie's not the only concrete, sequential, list making, structured man or woman that sometimes struggles to go to sleep
Mhm,
because she's got the next day on her mind so strongly
mhm,
of all the things she wants to get done, right?
mhm.
And even doing some breathing exercise, do some prayer release, and
Well, Dan writes out his game plan, he calls it,
yeah,
for the next day, the evening
night
before,
before,
and
which is a
that
great
helps
way
him
to do it.
release it. He doesn't have to ruminate about it because it's already on paper. He
Okay.
doesn't have to think, "Oh, wait, don't forget." It's on paper, and he'll get up in the middle of the night sometimes and write himself an
Yeah,
email
of
to
course,
remind
get
himself so
himself
he
a
can go
note.
back
Yeah.
to sleep. Yeah, I mean, because that happens to all of us, especially if you're someone like Dan who's spinning a lot of plates
Yeah. And frankly,
and
when we get older, it happens more because the
probably, yeah.
continuous continuity of sleep as we age is just a little more difficult as far as not waking up, not having to go to the bathroom, et cetera, et cetera. We're not
Mhm,
trying to age ourselves too dramatically. It's just the reality of life. So what do we do about that? One of the other things I told a client this week, he's younger, probably in the mid-20s, was enough of this sleeping in till 11 o'clock. He's
mhm.
engaged now. He's getting ready to get married in November. Enough of this sleeping in that long. Enough of 6-hour video game nights.
Oh.
2 hour with your bros, fine. 6 hours,
Mm.
come on. Right. And just trying to lock these things in and creating the appropriate steps of manhood so that by the time you walk down the aisle with that wonderful woman you're going to marry, you really feel ready. You feel equipped. I've been practicing my manhood and my disciplines and my self control and my habits so that I'm ready to integrate with a woman who's already a professional in a career.
Are you doing premarital with them?
It hasn't started yet, but it will.
Mm, because this is a disaster. Because she's gonna come in being like, "I 6 hours a day is not
No,
acceptable in a
and
marriage."
I'm not saying
And
that
then
happens a lot. I'm just saying
she's gonna be
yes.
the bad guy,
Yeah.
and no.
Speaking faith, not fear now, right? We got
I'm
some
just
work.
so
We
over
got some work to
screens.
do.
I'm over
Yeah.
screens. I did too much research for child development last fall, so
No, appreciate it.
yeah.
Yeah, they have some
We
work to do. And like most couples in their early 20s, they're not ready. I wasn't. You think you are, but I wasn't. That didn't mean I didn't get ready and quickly be ready to adjust and to grow and to move, even though we scrapped through some things. But even, Karen, if we translate what we're talking about with this client and translate it to what big things might be coming for us in 2026, maybe there are some things on the horizon that are very difficult. My daughter Paige she had a mock interview today with the school district. She was getting a little stressed the other night about there's not a lot of school social work positions open for next fall already. She's a planner. She's concrete sequential, and
mhm.
Angie and I both remind her, hey, school zones, they're not even going to figure out who's coming back, who's not coming back till May, June, maybe even July, August occasionally. And so I was just trying to help Paige put this into a perspective of God's got me. I'm trained, I'm equipped, I'm a good interviewer. I have amazing grades, I have a great track record, good responses, good references. Release it. If you just get bound by it, you're just going to
Well,
be frustrated and stressed out all the way until it happens or doesn't happen rather than saying, I'll be ready.
and she needs to talk more about that. I didn't know she was already worried about that. I've got 2 friends who are school social workers in 2 different districts. One's in Naperville and one's in the city. Well, not the city. I mean, it's yeah, whatever. Neighborhood, like, not
Yeah.
urban. Because I
Yeah.
don't know if Paige is feeling that kind of
Yeah. I
vibe,
mean,
but
the educational contacts we have in the Chicagoland
right.
area is ridiculous, but she
So
wants to be her own woman. She doesn't want to rely on dad or aunt or
no, no,
mom or
no,
anybody
no, no,
else.
but
And
at least I
yeah,
could get
at least
maybe
she
a
was
heads
speaking it
up.
out. Yeah. She was speaking it out yesterday at dinner. I hadn't heard it before either. So I don't feel like
Mhm.
she's been stuck in this. I think it was because she had the interview today.
Yeah, sure.
She had the interview day with the district, which she said went well,
It's a mock
which
interview, though, just
yeah,
preparing her?
just to
Oh,
prep.
okay.
You start with interviewing in your own district, just kind of get used to it and figure
Mhm,
it out a little bit, which is nice that school does that. But anyway, that's another example of at least getting these things out. Acknowledge it, right? Consider it, emote it. And she
mhm.
did last night. And then
Sorry,
I
I
think she's able
derailed
to
and
rest and
went
it's
into
okay.
strategizing to help my niece. I'm like, "Wait,
Which
who
you
do
can
I
call her,
know?"
text her later. She's
I know, I will.
yeah,
I'm gonna text Trisha and Heather right
that's
after
right.
we
She's
get off,
off
yeah.
there and get that movement. But we just want to give some, again, very concrete, specific, applicable scenarios. And there is a lot of joy. There's also a lot of neurotransmitter activity with these movements. When we check something off, when we set a goal and we do it, when
Mm,
we quit eating the junk food and we stay consistent with our workout, right? The neurological, physiological joy that is created is addictive, right? And it
mhm.
creates another harmonious mind, heart, body, spirit alignment, to use some Adler terms, that really helps us stay strong and stay adjustable to panic and stress and frustration and trauma and friends who text us what we think is slightly accusational or aggressive. It helps. We can go, all right, I'm good.
Mm,
I got my self-control going. I'm going to exude Jesus. I'm going to pray it through. I'm
yeah.
going to pause. I'm going to reflect. So they're important. They are holistically all very important. And we're excited. Thank you, clients and listeners for feedback and asking us for other ideas, other thoughts, other movements within this holistic 2026. One thing, Karin, we did want to mention as well, especially since we've been talking about nutrition and physiological activity in our life, is about the changes that have come in the government. And would you share, if our audience doesn't know, give a little more specificity to the wonderful news we've had in the last week or so?
Well, my biggest happy moment regarding HHS, which is, of course, RFKJ, which those of us in the medical freedom movement were ecstatic when he partnered up with Trump, because we knew that he was someone so steeped in this, and we can talk about why. Started out as an environmental lawyer, but all these moms of autism are saying, if you're worried about heavy metals in the lakes and rivers, you got to worry about the ones that they're putting in these vaccines, because my kid was normal until 18 months in his MMR, and now he flaps his hands and lost eye contact and doesn't speak. Autism. So anyway, the first thing they did just recently was to reduce the recommendations. And again, these are now more in line with Western Europe, because we had from 0, if you start with pregnancy, to 18, we were up to 90 plus vaccines, 90 plus shots into your baby.
Amazing.
Starting with, and we've talked about this on the podcast before, but it bears repeating, starting with day of birth, a hepatitis B vaccine was on the CDC recommendation, whether or not your mom had hepatitis B, and whether or not the infant had any intention to go and do drugs or engage in sexual activity.
Don't.
Yeah. First couple of moments of life.
Radar.
No. So these have been stripped down. Now they're still all available. So for the vaccine enthusiasts, you can still continue to jab your child, and it will still be covered by insurance. So no one is going to have their vaccines taken away. But it's been the recommendations have been drastically decreased, which is helpful because many, many, many states have expectations, which are, unless they have a religious exemption or a medical exemption, and I think that was polled in California, some of these far left states, for whatever reason, used to be medically free, and now everything's flip-flop. That's another conversation. But they require these for public schools. So to send your kid to public school, you have to, unless you go with a religious exemption in many states. Which, thank God. Yeah. Well, I don't know what Illinois is like. Here we get a religious exemption if you want, but
we
in
can,
Indiana,
but it's quite a bit of work.
Right. So having the CDC alter and lessen the number of vaccines required will free parents up to do research and consider each jab, and then if they want the ones, right. And without having the penalty of, if I don't just go along, then I don't get my kid
repercussions based on education and other rights.
And I'm very thrilled that just this conversation. Now, of course, the American Association of Pediatricians is all up in arms. And I hate to say it, but they are incentivized to keep many, many vaccines on the schedule because they do get kickbacks from the insurance companies. And it's a very twisted model. But one of the reasons that some pediatricians will literally kick a child out of their practice if the mom says, I don't want to vaccinate or I want to go a delayed schedule, is because they are getting compensated. And many pediatricians, frankly, because we now have sanitation and nutrition levels that we didn't at the turn of the 20th century, now we have many pediatricians that really rely on the wellness visit, including all the jabs, in order to sustain their practice. So they're very upset. But the American Association of Pediatrics lost every shred, what remaining shred of credibility in my mind, when 2 years ago they came out saying obesity was a disease and it was perfectly reasonable to give a 6-year-old GLP-1 shots, aka Ozempic. Oh, are you kidding me right now? And you're going to pretend you're not in bed with pharma? They weren't kidding. And they lost every shred of credibility, which is a big problem. Anyway, point is, that was point number 1. So praise God.
Huge,
and I mean that.
Wonderful.
It's huge. And the people from the Association of Pediatrics there's going to be rampant smallpox. We're going to have polio outbreaks and all these things that, again, if you want to see any of this, go to Children's Health Defense website and start doing some digging. They've got the graphs. All of these epidemics were way down, like statistically to nothing. And then they roll out the vaccines and they give credit to what was happening because of refrigeration and nutrition and increased hygiene. We're not kids aren't running around outside in an E. coli sludge because they're not living in slums anymore. So all of these things were happening. And then the vaccines get the credit. Anyway, so that's part 1. Part 2 is go check out the new food pyramid, people, because it's exactly upside down, which we've been talking about for a long time. And I love that they inverted it. So it used to be the pyramid and now which is just such a basically everything they told you for the last 50 years, just flip it. and you'll be healthier, which is exciting because, Elliott, like we talked about, it's hard for people to meet their fitness goals, nutrition goals, because there's so much processed food it's the most convenient, it's the most accessible. I think 60% of the American diet is processed foods. And what's excellent about the HHS coming out with a new food pyramid is that now public schools will start to change what they serve these kids. So you think about these kids who are on free lunch and free breakfast. They go in for the free breakfast that's just processed crud. So now with these recommendations, I'm hoping, and it may take a little bit to roll it out, I'm hoping that school districts will then be incentivized to abide by the new recommendations and clean up the junk that's being served at schools for the public education.
Huge freedom movement, and ties right into the holistic measures we're talking about for 2026. And now we're seeing them nationally, which is fantastic and really,
unbelievable.
Really a victory I didn't anticipate in maybe till the 2030s.
Yeah,
I
didn't
see
see it
maybe
coming
it might
quickly.
be happening just based on all the research, and everybody's getting so much more understanding of all these things. But man, it happened pretty quickly, and it's very, very exciting.
Well, it's great for the MAHA movement because some people were like, come on, Bobby, you've been in there a year. Let's get going. But he's fighting factions that we can't even fathom.
Gosh, legislature takes forever. That's why I think it's actually been quite fast.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. To have this done in a year is remarkable. And you're right, the legislative process is so slow. And also all those Congress people are paid off by pharma and big food and big ag. And so this is huge. And we needed someone like Bobby. Yep. And so for a lot of the other things going on that people are, and again, I'm more libertarian really. So I like when we're looking like, oh, we're going to run Venezuela. I'm like, excuse me, what? We got our own stuff to deal with here. There's other things going on and people are freaking out about ICE. There's other things going on that I have opinions about, but I think we all eventually have those things that are our core. And for me, MAHA, what's happened just this week with that press, what do they call it? What do they call that? Why can't I not think of it?
Presser?
Thank you, Tim. My gosh. With the MAHA press conference, I was walking the dogs and like skipping. I was so happy. And that is what I voted for. Absolutely what I voted for.
It's huge. It's generationally, potentially changing holistic measures for young children in particular, which is a bunch of our heart. And to see that for our grandkids and our nephews and nieces.
Because of all the wealthy Western nations, we're the least healthy.
Yeah,
we have the most chronic disease in children. Else, we're the most obese. So please stop telling me, American Association of Pediatrics, that this is going to, we're going to have an epidemic. We have an epidemic of sick kids who are fat. So stop telling me that we need to keep what's happening in place. It is time to change. Like you said earlier, doing the same thing over and over again is the definition of insanity. And that's what we've been doing to our children.
That's what we're doing.
All right, pray us out.
All right, Lord, thank you for this great news. We're excited for our nation and maybe even how it'll sweep elements of the world, even though we've been behind in this one, I believe, Lord, as Americans, and we're thankful, and we pray that it really does bring sweeping, holistic changes of health, nutrition, safety, protection for our next generation or two or three. And we're thankful, Lord, for new seasons and new times to operate and understand and grow, to pause and consider, as Karin was talking, and to take on values and monthly goals of attaining and displaying and yielding to the fruit of the Spirit, how to partner our habits and our strategies to be very specific, and how to grow them and move them and stick to them and even celebrate them in accountable ways, disclosed ways. And we're just thankful, Lord, for this opportunity. As the school year begins for Karin and I again next week, we just pray for excellent teaching and opportunities to encourage and strengthen our kids. Pray for Tim, Lord, and his work in the church and in family out there on the West Coast. And we just pray, Lord, that our listeners have been encouraged, challenged, inspired, and will consider and ponder as well. And we thank you, Lord, for this day and this time and this show today. Amen.
Love and Life with Dr. Karin and Pastor Elliott is produced by Tim May and executive producer, Dr. Karin Anderson-Abel. For more information about Love and Life, please go to loveandlifemedia.com.